Where do we go from here? Where do we begin? Let's talk about
it. You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, that was brutal. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Alex Clancy, I'm the host. You can follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Thanks for joining live on YouTube and Twitter Spaces following the game. Cardinals come out flat in the second half. Halftime, I said, this will tell a lot about this team, about the mettle of this team, about the leadership of this team. You're blanked in the second half. That's pretty much what you'd figure would happen, unfortunately, with Kyler Murray going down with what feared to be a torn ACL. We'll find out more tomorrow morning after his MRI. This was, like, all joking aside, all BS aside, everything aside, the worst possible outcome of what could have happened tonight. The absolute worst possible outcome. Scariest environment imaginable. And it's going to take some time to sift through all of this. It's going to take some time to figure out what's next. What I do know is I'll be here to talk you through it. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect technology, exclusively from Simply Safe, 24/7 monitoring agents, capture evidence to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. Cardinals lose Kyler Murray. Cardinals lose Marco Wilson. Cardinals are not mentally tough. Cardinals are what we feared it could fester into if things during the offseason weren't stabilized before the season started. And opposing conventional and popular wisdom, I don't like talking about negative things. I don't like talking about all of these things, but I feel like it's much better to have a real conversation than sugarcoat an unsugarcoatable situation. It's better to be pragmatic and look at a situation and say, you know what? These are the possible outcomes. Which would benefit the Cardinals organization and the fans the most? And we are going to have a bevy of those conversations from now through the offseason and the draft, coupled it with that, into the 2023 season, because Michael Bidwell is at a crossroads. Michael Bidwell is probably at the biggest crossroads of his ownership tenure. And I'll tell you about it why in the second segment. But talking about tonight, before we get to Kyler Murray, before we get to the future, we're going to have plenty of time. Again, Kyler Murray feared to have torn his ACL. There's no actual report that is exactly what happened. It's just speculation at this point with non-contact knee injuries. It's most always that. But let's talk about tonight before we pivot to the big picture. The Cardinals looked competent offensively and defensively in the first half. Colt McCoy, his floor is higher than most, if not all, backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He can get you places that most backups, if not all in the NFL, could get you. With the skill position players the Arizona Cardinals have, you're able to have some sort of shelf life every game until things kind of go awry. The adjustments made by the New England Patriots in the second half, especially defensively, prove that. DeAndre Hopkins fumbling the ball, scoop and score, wasn't ideal. It was the worst possible situation to happen at that juncture in the game. But in the first half, I'm looking at Cliff. I talked all week. This is Cliff Kingsbury versus Bill Belichick. Nothing else. Nothing else. We know who the Cardinals are. This is Cliff Kingsbury versus Bill Belichick. And sure, with Kyler Murray going down, obviously things are skewed a little bit. But if you look at the tenets of Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach, There are a couple of things that have never changed. One, he goes for it on pretty much every fourth down, fourth and manageable. Two, he calls a lot of go routes on third and mediums. And three, he compliments himself, pat on the back, on third and mediums, throwing a go route when they were in field goal range because he'll just be happy to kick a field goal. Those are three things, offensive play calling wise, that we've grown to know and enter whatever verb you want after that over his 4 years here. Okay? So we saw it again, regardless of quarterback. Go routes on third and medium. 4th and 2 to put the Cardinals up 9. Decided to go for it. Good play call, bad execution. Still, that's what happens on 4th down because there's no 5th down in football. I don't know if you knew that. There's no 5th down in football. So if you don't convert on 4th down, there's no 5th down. You have to give the ball to the other team. So instead of taking the points and going up 9, the Cardinals turn over on downs with under a minute, which when you don't kick a field goal and you go for it on 4th down, the opposing team doesn't start at their goal line. They start where you turn the ball over from. So that means it's a shorter field, and the defense has to account for that. End up kicking a 50-yarder. So instead of being up 16-7 most likely going into half, you're up 13-10 with a 6-point swing. New England gets the ball. The rest is history. Cardinals are blanked in the 4th quarter. That's more what I'm looking at for the future. Kyler Murray going down obviously makes Kingsbury's job harder. Yes, got it, okay? I'm not piling on Cliff Kingsbury just for the sake of it. But when things don't change, regardless of who's wearing the uniforms and who's playing quarterback, you got to look at the damn source. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So Kyler Murray's injury is massive. I mean, obviously, it's massive. He's probably going to be out for a calendar year or close to it, which is going to seep into the 2023 season. But Cliff Kingsbury can get as frustrated as he wants to when the players don't execute. But when you're playing hot potato and you end up not converting on 4th down, that's on you for the play call. That's on you for the play call. Cardinals probably would have lost this game anyways, but look at the foundation of Cliff Kingsbury. It hasn't changed. Evolve or die. Adapt or die. Cliff Kingsbury should not have a job come tomorrow. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Michael Bidwell is at a crossroads. It's not necessarily fair for it to be right now with Kyler Murray going down. You never wish an injury on anybody, let alone your star quarterback that you just paid $189 million guaranteed with upwards of $230. But Michael Bidwell is at the biggest crossroads of his tenure as the owner of the Arizona Cardinals. He has 2 ways to go. And chances are he's going to choose one because zebra doesn't normally change its stripes. But the other one could generationally change the Arizona Cardinals organization. I'm going to give both options. You can think for yourself on which way he should go and if it would benefit the Cardinals like I think it will. Oh, man, it's just brutal. It's just brutal. Kyler Murray, potentially out for a calendar year. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. You know what's not brutal? The options that you get over BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting, info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, the college bowl season, to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline.net as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Cardinals lose and lose Kyler Murray, what's feared to be a torn ACL. Not ideal. Where does Michael Bidwell go from here? He has two routes to take. One, you can blame this season on injuries. You can blame this season on powers that are out of the control of the employees in which he employs. And you can run it back with Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim again to start to realize their contract extensions that don't kick in until the start of the 2023 season. You could do that. Allow Steve Keim to make 7, 8, 9 draft picks as currently constructed in the 2023 season. A GM who is notorious for being the worst drafting GM since he's taken over. You could run it back with Colt McCoy or Trace McSorley, or, sign a vet and say, you know what? We'll give him one more chance with half a year of Kyler Murray, hopefully, maybe, next season. But then, if you go that route, then what's to say, well, you only got half a year maybe with Kyler Murray. And at that point, they could have had 3 wins. And, that's not fair either. So you give him another year. Then what? Then you give Steve Keim another draft. To draft where he is, once again, exquisitely terrible at drafting for the most part. That's one route. Okay? The other route is you find out tomorrow, potentially, hopefully not. I mean, hopefully there's some sort of saving grace here where Kyler Murray's not lost for 10 or 12 months with a torn ACL for his safety, obviously, and for the betterment of the team as well. But barring that, and you find out Kyler Murray tears his ACL, and you find it out officially tomorrow, you fire Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury before next week. That's another option. You rip the Band-Aid off, and you say, you know what? Change starts now. You have Vance Joseph take over as head coach, and you just ride out this season hoping for no more big injuries. You get a high draft pick. You hire a new GM before the draft. Sean Payton would want creative control. You let him, give him the Bill Belichick deal. Head coach GM, let him draft whatever. And you usher in a new Arizona Cardinals regime. You usher in a new regime that doesn't have history of failure and losing and ineptitude and uncertainty and nepotism, I guess you could say at this point with Steve Keim, the reason why he still has a job. You start fresh. You look at the roster of talent that's on the roster right now and you say, you know what? This is a championship roster if manicured, massaged, and young pieces added through the draft and otherwise. You do that. And yes, the first part or large portion of next season will be marred with Kyler Murray not being here. But you know what? Look at what Dan Campbell and Robert Saleh have done with the Jets and the Lions. It wasn't about win-loss early on. It wasn't about win-loss their first seasons as head coach. It was about a culture change. And look at what they're doing now. Look at what the Lions are doing now. Look at what the Jets are doing now. That's what the Cardinals need. They don't need the malaise and just festering in mediocrity and blaming injuries and blaming outside forces as to why they are where they are. Michael Bidwell has two choices: be a coward and remain, or really change the face of the organization in which he owns. What do you think is going to happen? Chances are we're going to be status quo, and Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim are going to still be the same post come 2023. But with how catastrophic this injury is for Kyler Murray as a human being, because remember, these NFL players are human beings, and the rehab is going to be tough. It could force Michael Bidwell's hand to do something he never thought that he was going to do, which is fire his best friend, Steve Keim. Is it plausible? Of course. Is it rational? Absolutely. Will it happen? Probably not. Kyler Murray's injury under a microscope in real time, from what we witnessed to what his future is going to look like. We're going to talk about it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Okay? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they'll score more or less in their Prize Picks projections, and you win up to 10 times your money. 60-second entries. You're not playing against anybody else. All you're doing is playing against the projections. It makes it so easy. Go to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app to play today. Easy, safe, fast withdrawals. 30 states you can do it in. And I think, and Canada, again, it's super simple. And it's with all the sports. NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball when it's back, NHL, women's college basketball, men's college basketball, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, whatever. Prize Picks. It's got you covered. Download the Prize Picks app. Go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. You get it. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match, for a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Absolutely brutal night on Monday Night Football for the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray out, which was feared to be a torn ACL. Third play of the game. Cardinals lose the game. And I talked in the first segment about how it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for the Cardinals. We're still seeing the same trends. The Cardinals are still the most penalized offensive team in the NFL. The Arizona Cardinals still have the play calls of go routes on 3rd and medium when a first down would do to continue the drive. Continue to go for it on 4th down instead of taking points. And I know it would have been a longer field goal for Matt Prater, but I'll tell you what, I'd rather kick the field goal there and go up 9 points going into the half with New England getting the ball than going for it on 4th down, even though it was a good play call. Still have to execute it. And with a backup quarterback and a tight end who hasn't played all that much, maybe take the points. And then they come out completely flat in the second half because Cliff Kingsbury is inept at his job post compared to what other head coaches are doing. The Cardinals are receding and not powering forward. They're getting worse and not better. And yes, plagued with injuries, absolutely, but so are the rest of the NFL teams. Michael Bidwell has 2 choices: to remain placated, coward, or he can do what everybody wants him to do aside from himself and the two people involved not named him. Black Monday come early. Move Vance Joseph over to interim head coach. Bring in a new regime with all of those draft picks in 2023. There is no way, there is no rational sense to be made of Steve Keim drafting any more players to this team. And I know this is harsh. I know this is a tough podcast to get through. But these are things that need to be discussed. And I'd rather discuss them with you than tweet them and then talk about positive things that just didn't happen today. What does this look like for Kyler Murray? It's going to be a tough physical and emotional roller coaster for him over the next year. He's strong. He'll be fine. But, this was a tough time to be injured. Obviously, you never want anybody to get injured once again. Signed a contract, tough year, missed 2 games, and now he's going to miss the remainder of the season. I don't think that this should have any weight on if he's the guy for the future, in my opinion. Cliff Kingsbury has held Kyler Murray back. Kyler Murray hasn't done his part either. And I feel like at this point, this relationship is now stale. This relationship has now reached its limit. This relationship need not exist for the future. If either of these people want to succeed, it's just spoiled. It ain't going to work anymore. So with Kyler Murray getting injured and feared to have torn his ACL, which will put him out for probably a calendar year or close to it, what does that mean for Kyler Murray? Does that mean that he's not going to run as much? Does that mean that he's going to play exactly the same? Does that mean that he's going to become a better pocket passer? Does that mean he's going to be more elusive behind the line of scrimmage but not jump in front of it? What does it mean? This is one where it's very open-ended, and I'm not going to pretend to guess. But this is a very, very pivotal time in Kyler Murray's career. Joe Burrow came back from a torn ACL the next year. He was fine. Rehab is easy for me to say. And I never make light of, the rehab that's going to go in to tearing an ACL. I mean, this is not Alex Smith's injury. Sure, it's very, very serious, okay? But players can come back from these things now. And what Kyler Murray's next chapter what Kyler Murray's next chapter will look like, I mean, he'd come back like the Hulk and just prove everybody wrong. This could be chapter 1. Chapter 2 is going to be 10 times better than chapter 1. We don't know. But I will leave you with this, and thanks for hanging out. Truly. Thank you for everybody who comments on Twitter, does everything. Thank you. Seriously. I'm like, shoot me DMs. I try to get back to as many people as I can in as timely fashion as I can. I always want to keep the conversation going. So, I just thank you for being here. And this is tough. Not this, but the situation's tough. The situation's very tough. But I will leave you with this because this is what I think, in my most humblest of opinions, to be the correct path. Michael Bidwell needs to sit down Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury before week 15. Say, you know what? That's it. You're going to get your money, but that's it. We're going to go a different direction. We're going to go a way that has been unprecedented or will be unprecedented with Michael Bidwell as owner. The Arizona Cardinals will never win with Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury as head coach and GM. And if that's not enough for Michael Bidwell to make a change, nothing ever will be. Alex Nancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk